Myself, Dr. Hanuman Prasad. I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, IARE. The content I am going to discuss in today's session is from second module. In fact, it is third module, Gender and Labor. And the topic name is Case Study of the Gender and Labor. And the contents from this topic that I am going to discuss in today's session are example of gender roles of women, especially in productive activities. Next, example of non-acknowledgement of women's contribution in productive work. An example of wage rate paid to the women in agriculture less than men. And categorization of workers and informal or unorganized sector, and finally references. Let's look at all these contents in detail. The first content is example of gender roles of especially women in productive activities. So since we are discussing a case study, so we have to take a daily life example. A household has 4 members: Velayammal, her husband Karupaya, and their 2 sons. So we are discussing about a household which has 4 members, namely Velayammal, this is woman, her husband Karupaya, and their 2 sons. So sons' names are not mentioned here, just their 2 sons. Okay. And Karupaya is an agricultural wage worker, but now he is unable to work due to illness. Okay. So he is agricultural wage worker, means he used to go to agriculture and he used to take daily wage whenever he go to agriculture. Okay. He used to work and then take the money for the work. So it is like daily wage. Okay. But due to his illness, he is unable to work right now. And their family needs to afford medical treatment to him because of his illness. Now the earnings of the household come from wages from work at agriculture and non-agricultural tasks, and by only Velayammal and her elder son too. Okay, since her husband Karupaya is not feeling well, he is having illness. Due to that, the wages should come from the agricultural and non-agricultural tasks that are performed and earned by Velayammal and her elder son. Okay. Although wage rates for women are lower than the wage rates paid to men, Velayammal works more days a year than her son. So this is the strategy at the olden days. The wage rates for women are less than that of men because there is a strategy in society that women are weaker, men are stronger. So women can do only less work, whereas men can do more work. That is what they feel, and then they used to give less wage for the women compared to men. So to compensate that less wage, she used to work more days a year than her son. Her total earnings in the year are higher than her son's because of her more days working. Okay, she works at home and at wage labor, from very early morning until the night meal. So means throughout the day and throughout the until she takes dinner, she used to work, and sometimes they used to work even after dinner until they go to bed. So they used to work and come back to home and then fresh up and then go to bed directly. Okay, even after meal they used to work. Okay, so that kind of situation their family is in. Okay, so in continuation of this case study, household decisions like taking loan. Okay, household decisions like taking loan, educational decision of younger son, and moving out of village for 2 weeks along with others for harvesting groundnut. Okay, so some decisions like taking loan and educational decision of younger son, and also moving out of village for 2 weeks along with others for harvesting groundnut are jointly taken by both husband and wife, Karupaya and Velammal. Okay, though Karupaya's views are crucial and generally accepted by Velammal, so he considers as head of household. The thing is, even though Karupaya's views, Karupaya's ideas are crucial, not in a gently manner, not in a working out manner, but those are accepted generally by the wives. Like Karupaya's wife, Velamma, she used to accept, even though they are crucial. Okay, so because of that acceptance, he considers himself as a head of household. Okay, if the head of household were to be identified on the basis of the role played by men and women, Velammal would be identified as the head of household in this situation. Okay, so it is not due to gender, men, women. Men should be head of household, women should be next to head of household. Not like that. But if you compare the identity, the role played by both of them, then Velamal should be the head of household. Okay, but since that kind of strategy is going on, men are superior than women. So even she also has to accept it. She doesn't have any option because in society all are going in the that line only. So no one can support her. But nowadays this strategy has been changed and all are in the equal path. Okay. So nowadays all are sailing in the same boat. So there is no issue of this kind of work partiality. Even though in some places it is there, but in most of the places this issue is sorted out based on the wiseness. If a person is wise and can handle the situation, then no one can show partiality to him. But if the person is not wise, if he is innocent, he or she is innocent, then people used to show partiality. So that kind of partiality should not be there. Okay. So that is what you have to learn from gender sensitization. All are equal in all the respects. Okay. But villagers in her village identify Karupaya as head of household unhesitatingly because villagers have that feeling. Men are superior than women. So they identify Karupaya as head of household unhesitatingly, means without any hesitation. This recognition of Karupaya as head of household is an important aspect of social reality and of the subordinate status of women. See the conclusion. This kind of recognition of Karupaya as head of household is an important aspect of wage labor from okay, it is an important aspect of social reality and subordinate status of women. Subordinate status of women. Okay. So in this case study, we can understand these contents, whatever I have shown here. Gender roles of women in productive activities means they used to give birth to childs, and non-acknowledgement of women's contribution to productive work. So even though they are doing that kind of nation development work, no one will acknowledge that work. It is just taken as casual. And example of wage rate paid to the women in agriculture less than men, that we have seen already. So her son is to get more money than her. So have a feeling that men are stronger and women are weaker. Okay. So now we will see progress exercise. We'll see little progress exercise. What we have understood from the previous sessions up to now. Okay. What are the employment categories according to NSSO? What are the employment categories according to NSSO? You know that NSSO stands for National Sample Survey Organization. According to this, employment is categorized into three types. First type is self-employed. Second type is employed on regular ways, and the third type is employed on casual ways. Self-employed means they are doing their own business or they are doing their own agricultural farming. Okay, so they are responsible for their profit and loss. No one is responsible for that. Okay, and second one is employed on regular ways that I have already explained. So those whose job is safe and goes for a long time. So that is considered as employed on regular ways. So they used to take salary once in a month. Okay. And the third category is employed on casual ways. Casual ways means not every day, even some of the days when there is a requirement. Okay. So this is not safe, and this is only for short period of time, and the salaries are per day. Okay, so the day when he worked or when he performs the duty, that day itself he gets the money. Means it is kind of temporary. Okay, and regular wage is a kind of permanent. It's not exactly, but a kind of permanent, and casual wage is a kind of temporary. And second question, define employment. So how do you define employment? Employment is not a simple term denoting mere holding of a job for which a wage is paid or operating of one's own business. Okay, so employment is not a simple term. It's not a just term denoting mere holding of a job for which a wage is paid or operating of one's own business. Means it is not only just taking salary for the job or just operating his or her own business. Okay, it actually signifies who is doing what under circumstances he most wants to do. Means employment generally we will consider that just taking money for duty. Okay, so mere holding of a job for which wage is paid. It's not simply that. It signifies whether the person is doing it willingly and whether he is involved or not. So whether he likes that environment, whether he likes that nature of work, all these things, then only that work is considered as, then only that person is considered as, whether it is male or female, men or women, it is considered as fully employed. In that case, it is considered as fully employed. That I have discussed, but I am reminding once. Okay, so this is the situation in this case. If one works in the circumstances where he most wants to do. Okay. And the third question being, what is gender marking? Gender marking is a process in which the qualifications and characteristics of an occupation become associated with gender. Okay, so the process in which the qualifications and characterizations or characteristics of an occupation become associated with gender means if any occupation is performed by any type of gender, so what are the qualifications they have, whether they fulfilled the minimum requirement to pursue that job or to perform the work in that job, and what are the characteristics of that occupation. So what kind of occupation it is it daily basis or alternate day basis, or it is just every minute follow up basis. So based on that we can assign the occupation which becomes associated with gender. So this kind of process is called gender marking. And gender segregation may be seen as a result of gender marking. Gender segregation means segregation, separation of gender as a result of gender marking. Okay, because of their qualifications, the way they cannot work according to the characteristics of the occupation, the gender segregation is erased. Okay, so that is what you can answer about gender marking. And the fourth question that I have taken for your progress exercise is, what is labor? Labor is primary factor of production. What is labor? It is primary factor of production. The size of a nation's labor force is determined by the size of its adult population. The size of its adult population. Size of nation's labor force is determined by the size of its adult population. Okay, and the extent to which the adults are either working or are prepared to offer their labor for wages. Okay, so and the extent to which the adults are either working regularly or they are prepared to offer their labor for wages means daily wage type. Okay, so this is considered as labor. It is the primary or prime factor of production. Okay, so I hope you can answer these questions in a smooth manner. And let's continue. The next content is categorization of workers. Workers can be categorized into two broad categories. Two categories based on their participation in informal or formal economy of a country. Based on what? Their participation in informal or formal economy of a country. So workers can be categorized into two categories on the basis of their participation in informal or formal economy of a country. So the first one is unorganized or informal sector. Unorganized or informal sector. And the second category is organized or formal sector. Okay, that is why I have told this is categorized on the basis of participation in informal or formal economy of India, country, any country. Okay, the situation of employment of women in informal sector. So we have to look at the situation. What is the situation of employment of women in informal sector? And similarly, what is the situation of employment of women in formal sector? Okay, one has to keenly observe these two factors. Means situation of employment of women in informal sector as well as in formal sector. How the progress is going and how the work is getting performed by them. Okay, and let's discuss informal or organized sector, informal or unorganized sector, informal or unorganized sector. Informal sector is also called unorganization sector or unorganized sector, as I have discussed here in India. The existing estimation shows that the growth of informal economy to the total non-agricultural employment is about 65% in Asia. So this is according to Indian Labour Organization ILO 2002. Okay. So what is this sentence mean? The existing estimation shows that the growth of informal economy to the total non-agricultural employment is about 65%. Means many of the employers are in non-agricultural sectors. They are not in agricultural sector. But we have to survive. The food is coming from agriculture sector only. If agricultural sector is not in operation, no one can get food. Okay, then it will be a worst situation. So you can think of it. So the total non-agricultural employment percentage is about 65 in Asia. Okay, and India includes agriculture in informal employment. So what is agriculture? Informal employment. Okay, informal employment, and non-agricultural employment is considered as formal or organized sector. Okay, so non-agricultural employment performing persons are about 65% in Asia continent. Okay, and globalization further expanded in the informal sector in the developing and transition countries. Okay, globalization further expanded the informal sector in the developing and transition countries. Globalization contributes for the movement of capital across national boundaries in search of cheap labor. What is this? Globalization contributes for the movement of capital across national boundaries, in search of cheap labor. Okay, so in the world, always people look for the mm, workers who are working at a cheap labor, means at a cheap wage rate. Okay, so this globalization contributes for the movement of capital across national boundaries in search of cheap labor. Okay, I hope you understood a little bit about the informal or unorganized sector. Now there is continuation. Here you will understand in full. Wherever cheap labor is available, the transnational and multinational companies establish their production centers and units. Okay, wherever cheap labor is available, wherever cheap labor is available, there the transnational and multinational companies establish their production centers or their production units. Then only they will get more benefits. No, so that is why the transnational and multinational companies establish their production centers or units. And informalization of economy provides cheap labor and small scale support services by producing goods in piece rate in piece rate and offering contractual services and offering contractual services. Okay, yes, to multinational as well as transnational corporations. Okay, so what does this statement indicates? Informalization of economy provides cheap labor and small scale support services by producing goods in piece rate and offering contractual services to multinational as well as transnational corporations. Activities of informal sector can be broadly categorized into what are the activities that are performed by informal sector. There are two categories. One is informal self-owned enterprises and second one is casual workers. So first one is activities of informal sector can be categorized into two ways. Number one, informal self-owned enterprises and casual workers. Okay, home-based workers and street vendors comprise largest subgroups in the informal workforce. What does it mean? Home-based workers and street vendors. So those who work in home itself by having some shop or something. And street vendors, those who go to the streets and they sell their goods, whatever it is. Okay, comprise largest subgroups in the informal workforce. In informal workforce, what are the largest subgroups? One is the workers and street vendors, home based workers and street vendors. Okay, these two comprise largest subgroups in the informal workforce, home based workers as well as street vendors. Between these two means between the street vendors and informal workers. So, what is the major thing? Visibility of street vendors is more prominent. So, compared to home based workers, more street vendors can be seen because home based means it takes little more cost. But street vendor means no need to have any shop at home. They can directly go on their own vehicle, either bicycle or Lona, then they can sell their goods. Okay, that is why visibility of street vendors is more prominent. Next, you can see about casual workers. They comprise 10 to 25% of the non-agricultural workforce in developing countries, which is according to ILO 2002, Indian Labour Organization. Self-employed run small units in a particular place doing vending business. Okay. In case of self-employed, they run small units. They run only small units in a particular place. In a particular place, doing vending business. That is the status of self-employed. And the workforce distribution in the informal sector differs from country to country. It is not fixed in every country. The informal work means workforce distribution in the informal sector differs from wages on daily basis. Differs from wages on daily basis. What rates they are paid per day. So that it will differ. What will differ? The self-employed run small units in a particular place doing vending business. The workforce distribution in the informal sector differs from country to country. Okay, in some countries the workforce distribution may have partiality, whereas in other countries the workforce distribution may be genuine. Okay, so that is why you are reading this thing. The casual workers do not have a permanent job and they get wages on daily basis, as I explained in the previous slides. And so they tend to shuttle from one week to the other depending on the availability of work and the wage rate on a particular day. Okay, so they tend to shuttle from one week to another depending on the availability of work and the wage rate on a particular day. So depending on what availability of work and the wage rate on that particular day. Okay, these two decides the future of casual workers. And the references I have taken for this session are Gender Studies by Kadambari, Gender Sensitization by Rajalakshmi Kalyani, and finally Indian Labour Organization ILO 2002. Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.